already loved by others.
Hi, I'm Michelle Hudspeth. Thank you for joining me today on Red, Rare Essential Discoveries. I'm continuing my story to self-awareness and self-love. In the last video, I talked about the practical ways that I found to get to know myself better and be able to accept myself and to know myself and to love myself. So really what I was doing was a term called self-differentiation. And I believe there was a doctor named Murray Bowen who created the theory of self-differentiation. And I would say typically it's the time of life that we all go through if we're in a healthy family between the ages of 16 and probably 25. This is that time where we're discovering, who am I? What do I believe? Why do I believe that? What do I think about politics? What do I think about marriage? What do I think about God? And we are learning to recognize our own feelings and our own beliefs and realizing that they're separate from our family, they're separate from our culture, they're separate from whatever group, that we think that we belong to. And it is a time of really becoming an adult and creating a healthy foundation for these future decisions that we make between the ages of 16 and 25 that can be life-changing, such as who to marry and having children or taking a career path. Those are important decisions that are made at that season of life. And I realized in my trauma and in my woundedness, my brokenness, I had never self-differentiated. And basically, that's what this was that I was doing. And sad to say, I was 48 years old, but better late than never, right? And it was wonderful. What was so wonderful about it was not only the personal joy and peace and healing that I was experiencing, but now I had some of that to give to my own children, to give to friends that were struggling, to give to, anyone that needed it, really. The more that I self-differentiated, the less codependent I was. And I began to use my voice and say what I needed and what I wanted and what I didn't like. And I began to make boundaries, like real boundaries. Because if you know anything about codependency, there's no good boundaries. No one has them. It's like you make the boundary, but you just, you move it. Every time someone is upset or you're trying to get your needs met, you move that boundary to get that need met that you think you can't meet. As I made these boundaries, the single biggest thing that changed about me was I stopped people pleasing. Now, I wouldn't say I still struggle with it today. Part of it's just my makeup. I don't enjoy conflict. I like peace. And some conflict is really good. Healthy conflict actually leads to deeper intimacy in your relationships. So we don't want to avoid conflict. But there are times that I will struggle with being honest and authentic because I know if I say what I want, need, don't want, it could create conflict. Because remember, I can't control the other person. But I have to love myself enough and I have to trust myself enough and trust my higher power that if I'm honest and authentic, that it's still going to be okay, that things are still going to work out and I'll get through the conflict and I might even learn something and I might even gain something in the relationship that I'm having conflict. That's just a side note. But as I began to people please less and less, two things happened. In some of my relationships, it got better. There was a deepening of the relationship. There was more love. more reciprocity in the relationship. And in other relationships, it broke even more. The gap widened in the relationship. And that's basically what happened in my marriage. The gap widened to the point where there was no way to cross it anymore. And I did have a few friendships that I lost, sad to say. I'd like to think that they're repairable, and I believe they will. But when you've lived your whole life as someone else and you've been inauthentic, and then you heal and you change, it is reasonable to expect that because you set your life up this way with this persona, that changes to that could affect you in an adverse way. And this is the scary part about the journey of self-awareness and self-love. Because when it was all said and done, the friends and the relationships that I have left are the ones that are the healthiest. And I'm rebuilding my life now from that. But is it worth it? Yeah, it's totally worth it. I have learned how to treat myself more kindly. I'm learning to judge myself less. I would love to say that I never judge myself, but I still do. I endeavor to not be so hard on myself and have unrealistic expectations of myself because I know myself. And I do try to set myself up for success by making sure that I get enough sleep, I eat well, I have fun, I read interesting things, I have new experiences, I spend time with people that are loving and empowering, and I have that quiet time every day to be with me and to be with my higher power. So in that way, it has really radically changed my life for the best, and I'm super, super grateful for that. The other thing that I would want to say here is, in this process, I learned to surrender fully to my higher power. Meaning, as I accepted myself, I then was able to say thank you for how I was made and to appreciate the way I was made. Instead of pushing against that, now I accepted and embraced that about myself. And it was very rewarding because I began to show up in life empowered and loving and patient and tolerant. I mean, becoming a better version of myself. So that's the takeaway from there, that, yeah, I highly encourage you to continue. If you're on this journey, continue. Okay, I want to go back to that part where I talked about being more kind to yourself, like your internal dialogue. Because if you have been hard on yourself or had a history of being hard on yourself, maybe having unrealistic expectations, then your inner dialogue usually is condescending or, will come down on you when you feel like you haven't behaved well or made the right decision. And my life coach was really helpful in this area. One of the things she would say is, okay, I hear that you're unhappy about this decision you made, or you don't like what you said or the way you acted. Let's step back from that a minute, okay? Let's don't judge ourselves. Step back from that a minute. Observe what's going on. Observe what was going on before that, okay? Don't overanalyze it. Don't overthink it, but become aware, and then ask yourself this question. I wonder why I did that. I wonder why I said that. I wonder why I made that decision. and do it in a curious way, as if you're a child wanting to know why. You know, when kids are little, they're like, why does it rain? And you're like, so it's the same thing with yourself. When you do something that you perceive wasn't right, ask yourself, I wonder why I did that. And usually the answer comes immediately. Oh, I was scared. I was nervous. I was embarrassed. I wasn't prepared to answer questions about that. Whatever. But it'll give you awareness into what you were thinking, why you were thinking that, so you can, in the future, be proactive about making sure you're in a state that, can better deal with another situation that might come along like that one. The other thing my life coach taught me was when negative things happen, because, stuff's going to happen, even though I feel like I'm the happiest I've ever been and I'm living life at such a higher level emotionally and relationally and mentally than I ever have, I still have negative stuff happen. I mean, we just gone through COVID-19, the pandemic, then the riots. It's a crazy time we're in. And it can feel scary and overwhelming. And many of my loved ones and friends have dealt with adverse situations because of the things that have been going on. So negative stuff's still going to happen. But it's important to say, well, this happened, so I'm thinking it means this negative thing over here. But my life coach was like, well, ask yourself, what else could it mean? Is there anything else it could mean? Anything positive? Could you flip it somehow? And she called that a power question. When you ask yourself a power question, the brain looks for a solution to what you're asking in a more problem-solving way. And that has been super helpful, because there are going to be things that happen. There are things now that happen that will trigger unresolved pain, or they'll trigger default behavior, default codependency behavior that I don't want to do. And if I'm not aware of what's going on, I can just react or do that default behavior instead of be proactive. So asking the power question, what else could that mean? You can ask that question when you're in conflict with your partner or your spouse, when you're in conflict with something going on in the world, with something going on with your finances, with something going on with your body. What else could it mean? Because I believe life is what you think it is. And I believe life is for you. It's not happening to you. It's for you. So by asking that question, it helps shift the state of mind that I'm in from negativity and fear to curiosity. Could there be anything positive? Could there be another way to look at this that could actually work for my good? Is that possible? And this is helpful in keeping your mind open and keeping your heart open, because no one's ever going to know everything there is to know. We're just not. We're constantly learning and growing. But those of us that are really learning and growing are open. Our minds are open and our hearts are open. Well, I'm going to stop there for today. I appreciate you listening. Thank you so much. And I hope that you will like and consider subscribing to my channel. Until next time. Bye.